Welcome back to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast. I'm Peggy Caffeine, and if you're listening today, it's Thanksgiving Day. And first, I want to take a moment of gratitude to say thank you to you. Thanks for hitting play today and for every time you hit play on Uplevel Dairy, because truly every play is an answered prayer. You know, when I set out on this path 3 years ago, actually 3 years ago this month, to serve the dairy community in a way that I felt what I was called to do, a way that was different than I'd done before, with real stories and real conversations with people who are leading our industry. Every time you listen, it's a confirmation that I'm indeed on the right path, in the right place, and doing the right things. And so it's with a very humble heart that on Thanksgiving Day, I say thank you for allowing me to be a voice in your ear. And I take that responsibility and I hold it highly. And that's why today I'm bringing back a recent guest to share a powerful conversation and a timely message as we reflect on what we're grateful for in the past year and look ahead into 2026. You're about to hear from Tim Peart, the Senior Vice President of Production Animal at MWI, and the practice that he has made a habit of for the past several years of choosing a word of the year for both himself and his team of nearly 300 employees. So whether you're leading a team yourself on a dairy or in the industry, maybe you're raising a family or just looking for how you can grow personally, professionally, even spiritually in the year ahead, I hope that you find some inspiration to choose a word for yourself. Now let's catch up with Tim Peart. So Tim, first off, thank you for jumping back on with me today. We had a wonderful visit when I was in Amarillo last summer at your office. And we talked a lot in that podcast, which actually just went out a couple of weeks ago, about how technology has really transformed in the dairy industry, but also how you'd been along for the ride with that. One of the things that was off camera that you and I talked about was that we had something in common, and that was that we both choose a word for the year. And so it's something that I've done for a long time, something that actually you've done for a long time too. So tell me about how this works out for you. Why do you choose to pick a word of the year, and how did you ever get started doing that?
Yeah, so years ago, about in 2010, we started doing an event called the 4C Summit, where we were taking all of our best customers, in conjunction with one of our manufacturing partners, and we would take the leaders of our customers on a trip, and we would take them somewhere they would never go themselves, and we'd teach them about an industry that they'd never learn about themselves. So we went to some amazing locations. We always had a keynote speaker. One of them was like Simon Sinek and a few other, Daniel Pink, etc. And in 2019, we actually went to Sarasota, Florida. We got to study the circus industry. So we got a tour of the Ringling Brothers facility and where they started. And our keynote speaker on the very first morning was John Gordon. So I had the pleasure to introduce him, which was great. I got to meet him the morning before and have a conversation with him. I'd actually got to read one of his books because I knew who he was going to be. But he talked a little bit about his one word there, but afterwards I subscribed to his newsletter. And so I would just read through his newsletter and away we went. And at the end of that year, he came out with the one word. It was part of his newsletter. And so for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to find a way. Initially, it was for myself. And then I want to find a way to help. How does this help me in my job as well? So that's where it really came from, is my opportunity to meet John Gordon, meet him in person, and listen to him and sit down and read his books and become part of the newsletter group.
So John Gordon, I'm personally a big fan of his as well. For someone that doesn't know who we're talking about when we say John Gordon, how would you describe him?
Oh, energetic, passionate, very much a Christian, and believes that everything happens for a purpose and there's a reason for it, and everybody has a role. And he's very much if you want to, there's a way for you to go do something. That's what I liked about him was there might be an obstacle. It's not an obstacle. It's just a challenge you've got to figure out how to overcome.
And so, yeah, inspirational author, speaker, but really that deep heart that's rooted in a strong faith and communicating that to others so that you can see these connections for I would call it kind of connections for a greater good in the world. And that's what I love about him as well. So that kind of sparked something in you. What was the first word that you chose and how did you land on that?
So the first word, I had a couple other ones internally for myself, right? And I did passion or purpose, etc. But then I got to thinking in 2022 was really my very first, at the end of 21, I should say, was my first company word, if you want to call it that. COVID had happened. Pre that, I had done a great job at communicating with my team. I was always in front of them. COVID happens, right? We're sidelined. We can't go do that, especially being part of a larger organization on the human health side. We probably had more restrictions than most in terms of getting back in the field and how do we get in front of people. And so my very first, I'll call it my company word, was engagement. And it was about we as a company engage phenomenally well with our customer. There's no doubt about that. We have a team of people that do that. But how do I better engage with the team? How do I better communicate with who they are, what they're doing, the importance of what they do, the thankfulness that we have for what they do? And so for me, the engage word really meant sitting down and listening to my team, getting in front of my team, and physically meeting them where they are, rather than either through an email or through a Teams call or something. I made a commitment in 2022 to be in the field, to ride with my reps, to ride with our service teams, etc. So that was my first word, was engagement.
And when you talk about the team that you were leading at that time, how many people were part of that team?
So that was an interesting year, right? So that would have been, at the time, just when I was president of Micro, so there would have been about 200, and about halfway through that year is when I became the senior vice president of production animal, and so then we had the entire sales team and all of the technology team. So there was about 300 people.
So you really put a big charge upon yourself, Tim, to say that you were going to be engaged with almost 300 people in some capacity. So what did that drive differently? What were the results that ended up from really focusing intentionally on spending time with people, like you said, jumping in the truck, being out in the field, and just being one-on-one, meeting people where they were at? What difference did it make?
I think for me, because I was new into that role, it built a bunch of trust between myself and my new team members who I really hadn't had much engagement with, right? They'd been a different team of mine. So I had to find a way to let them have confidence in myself that I'm here for you. I'm not like coming in and going to tell you what to do. I want to understand who you are. There's no doubt from a financial perspective in the numbers, 22 was a phenomenal year for us. 23, every year has been great. We have an incredible team of people. But I think the result was we became better as a company. Mm. And what I mean by that is we were better for our customers. We were better for our associates by being able and understanding who they were. For me, anyway, the level of trust that I have with that team, every one of them knows that they can call me at any point in time and we can have a conversation and we can work through what might or might not be going on and how to fix something. So it was really important to let them know who I was.
And engagement, what a great word to drive that. And so that was 2022. That means that you've had a couple of more years since then and a few more words. What did 2023, 2024, and we'll get to 2025 in just a second here, but what came after that?
My 23 to 24 word, was Embolden. And so after I'd met all of my team and spent time with them, at least for me as a leadership, I am not a micromanager. I want to give my team the autonomy to be able to do what they are made to go do and what they have the power to go do, right? And so I spent some time on what does that look like? How do I allow somebody to go do their job and let them run I'll call it their business? And so, I actually started out with the word empower. That was going to be my word. But the more research I did it, the less I believed in the word because I didn't believe I had power over somebody. And so I pushed it aside. And so embolden became my word for 23. And the definition of embolden was to give someone the courage or confidence to do something or to behave in a certain way. And so my whole goal with that word and with the letter to the team was, you're in charge of your own destiny. This is your business just as much as it is mine, or just as much as it is our shareholders. Don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to make your decisions, make the right decisions, and keep growing your business, your territory.
So that's what Embolden meant to you in the directive that from which you were leading the team. Is there any story that comes to mind of how that came to life, either for you or for someone that was part of the team there?
I mean, there was multiple times where people would call me up and say, hey, you said I could go do this. So I went and did it. Now it didn't work. So now we have to fix it. But I was okay with all of that they had made a mistake. But they did it with the thought process that I'm making the right decision at the time with what I know. And now that it didn't work, I'm going to own up to it. Now we're going to get together. Now we're going to fix it. And what is next? And so, yeah, there were multiple times people would call me and say, hey, this happened. I thought I was right. Or sometimes there was the flip side where I went and made a decision and man, look how well it worked. So there were stories of success and there were stories of failure throughout the year. But again, I think it was allowing them to make their own decisions that was really important for a lot of the team members.
That plays into leadership. And I think it's interesting how you draw this line between empowerment and emboldenment and say, okay, power, encouraging people, how do I say this? You looked at it and you could say empowerment meant something different than helping your team to see opportunities to step out and to be bold. And so just talk a little bit more about that for a moment, of the differentiation in your mind as a leader between empowerment and emboldenment.
Yeah, where I got to, Peggy, was, at least in my own mind, I don't want to tell someone you've got to go make your own decisions. I get that's leadership and that's allowing them the ability to go do something, but I'm making them go do that. And so from my perspective, I didn't want to make them have more ownership over their business. I wanted to give them the opportunity to do it themselves. And some would step up and some didn't. There's no doubt. That's just a personality component. But I didn't want it to seem like I'm telling you, you must be different, and I'm telling you that you must behave or do something in a different manner. I wanted it to be, I'm giving you the opportunity. If you wish to do so, this is your chance to step up and do what you think is right for your territory or your component of the business. And I think, at least for me, they were different.
And so you saw some people step up to that charge to take their own leadership.
Absolutely, right? And some of those people have been promoted and continue to do phenomenal within the organization and will continue to do really well. Now, we did lose some people too, because they were emboldened to make a decision that was best for them or their family. And that's okay. It allowed them to go do something that they were passionate about. And we have to understand that it's okay for people to go do that.
As you talk about that, Tim, it reminds me of a conversation that I had with this. So this is going back actually 3 years to when I first started this podcast. And my very first guest was a young man. He was 26 at the time, Jared Dupengeiser, and he was managing Rosendale Dairy, which is at that time the largest dairy in the state of Wisconsin. Young guy, just this super leader. And I remember asking him about what it was like to step in as a manager and what his hopes and goals were for the people on the team. And I remember him saying that, I hope they choose to stay here, but I hope they're better for having been here should they choose to go and do something else. And what you're saying reminds me a lot of what Jared had said. So wise beyond his years, right? 26 when he said that. But same concept?
Oh, absolutely. Right. I mean, I always want the best people on our team, but I never will hesitate to allow someone to go make themselves better. And if that means leaving the organization to be better, that's okay. And at the same point in time, it also means we have an advocate within our industry or somewhere else that knows our business and understands who we are and will always still continue to fight for our organization and our industry as well.
some pretty strong memories in your mind that were results of that word for that was 2023 and 2024 with Emboldenment. And then that leads us up to where we're at right now. We are closing out 2025. So catch us up on what 2025 has been for you. What was your word this year?
So my word was actually 3 words. I cheated this year. I think you got to go back and think about it. So for me, there was so much going on at the start of 25 in terms of the business, our opportunities to grow. We have a strategic plan on hitting certain targets within the organization and within the industry from a market share perspective and everything else. And so we had this massive priority list of everything we wanted to go do, and you can't go do it all. And so how do you actually get better as a business, but also be able to hit the right prioritization and everything else? And so I did my work on it. It took me a long time to get to this one. And I found one of my employees actually sent me a video of a young lady from social media who had talked about a gentleman by the name of Bill Perkins, who's an investor and an entrepreneur. But he made the comment, it said, I don't have to be richer, smarter, or better. I just need to be faster. And so the more I thought about that and that resonated with me, my word became act with urgency. And it doesn't mean go faster. That's the part that I had the hardest time telling my team. When they saw that, they're like, oh, you just want us to go quick. I'm like, no, that's not what it means. What it means is be more intentional in our actions. It means prioritize what you need to go do and then go do it. Don't hesitate in our decision-making process. Don't procrastinate. And for me, it really meant respond and take action. So let the stuff sit back over here behind you and move forward quickly on the things that truly matter.
I love that. What did that look like in real time? How did it all play out? What stands out in your mind from the last 10 months or so of leading with Act with Urgency yourself, but also and seeing how it showed up in others?
Well, first off, none of us are perfect. And so we still have a long way to go to make sure we're acting with urgency, right? We still get bogged down in too much stuff to go do. But there's no doubt, I think, certainly with my team, my direct team, I have instilled in them, we have an opportunity to go do this. All right, let's meet tomorrow. There's none of this, let's have a conversation in 2 weeks. So that part is great, right? We can make time to get together quickly and talk about it. We don't wait. And then from the rest of the team, from the organization, if you think about our industry as a whole, and it's not just dairy focused, it's the beef side as well. Lowest cow herd in history. It's going to be the lowest cattle on feed we've ever had. The Mexican border is still closed. There's millions of animals that aren't coming across. Our team got in front of everybody. Our team grew our business. Our team grew our company faster than what the market was growing. And we took market share from our competitors. So I think they were getting in front of their customers and helping them out faster than they had ever done before. The numbers absolutely showed it. We still have work to do on being better though. And numbers is one thing, but are we better for our customers? Absolutely we are. We're giving them more, and our team did that. They wanted answers quicker than they ever have in the past, which I'm super proud of them for that, because they're doing that. They were prioritizing on their own what is so important to the customer. We've got to fix this. Now, it added some work to my plate because, again, all the way back to the Embolden component, I have just territory reps calling me up directly and say, hey, we've got to go. This is a problem. We got to fix it now. I will always help somebody out like that. To me, that is exactly what we're looking for.
So that urgency sometimes came back to you being the one having to take action, huh?
Absolutely it did. Yes, without a doubt.
So something I'm curious about for you, and again, from a leadership perspective. So a team of nearly 300 people, right? And I think about the dairy producers out there that are owners and managers and also managing large teams. One of the challenges sometimes can be taking that theme or a goal and communicating it repeatedly so that others buy in, believe, and then take action. So how did you do that?
So every year I write a letter to my team at the end of the year. And it's about what did we accomplish? What was my word? How did I do myself? How did I feel we as a company did? And then I talk about my word for next year. So I set it up in January, like 1st or 2nd of January, in that context of here's what I said, here's what I think we did, here's what I'm doing, and here's what I'm committing to for the next year. And then it really is a lot of monthly and quarterly communication not from a company, here's how the company's doing. I really like to get down to the personal piece. Here's how I'm doing. This is what it meant to me. Here's where I've been successful. Here's where I'm not. Here's what I have to go fix.
Tim, you're going to be putting together that letter probably pretty soon here as we approach the end of the year. So give us the sneak peek. What went well for you personally with acting with urgency? Give me an example of something a time where you did just that and what the results were.
I think part of it was back to some decision-making process on our dairy side on can we change a core model on how we go to market? Historically, we've always been a business where we had a very specific business model. And so I have a team of people, or a couple of people on the team on the dairy side that want to do something a little differently. And instead of procrastinating and modeling this out, I think part of it was, all right, what could work? And so we got together quickly. We actually are testing the model already, and we're getting ready to roll it out here in the next 30 to 45 days, which I think will allow us to be able to get in front of more dairies to bring more technology to them. And I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse and talk about exactly what we're doing, but it was the concept of we want to challenge the status quo on how we go to market. Okay, that's great. Let's do it right now because we're about to start a new year. It needs to be ready to go before the year starts. So how do we make that happen? And so it was about emboldening and empowering my team to model it out themselves, to do the work themselves, not be beholden on me to do it, and then for them to come up with the answers, and away we go.
How about for you personally? What was something in which you've acted with urgency?
As I said before we started the recording, my wife was from South Dakota. I moved her away from here 20-something years ago. We got to the point where it was time to move back. And then all of a sudden, we made the decision, we're going. And so within a 30-day period, we put our house on the market. We sold our house. We packed all of our stuff up and we moved back to South Dakota, which is where she is from. And so we made the decision quick, and it forced us to understand, how do I continue to do my job? How do I continue to stay in front of my teams? How do I communicate it to my team? How do I make sure that they're comfortable with me not being in the office each and every day? And so it changed how I'm going to have to do my job into the future a little bit. It may mean a little bit more travel, but from a personal perspective, it's better for us as a family and a couple.
So for you, that's not a totally new thing to take that fast of action. This time it just played out that the markets could keep up with you and the speed at which you wanted to make change.
I usually do try to make decisions quickly. I want things to go fast. I like to process things quickly and make a decision and go. We had a speaker years ago at one of our 4C summits, and his comment has resonated forever in my head. He said, I will make 10 decisions. 9 of them will be wrong. I'll be right on the 10th one, and you still haven't made a decision. Now, hopefully I don't make 10 mistakes personally on my life, or we don't make 10 mistakes within the organization. But I do love the concept of make a decision, fix it. Make a decision, fix it.
The time span of progress that can be made by making a decision, even when it's the wrong one, versus procrastinating on decision making.
Right. And the learnings that you can get from it is really important as well. The only negative that you have is if you find out you've made an incorrect decision, you better fix it just as fast.
That's the key right there, right? Acting with urgency, not just the decision making, but the fixing side. So is there anything that stands out? Because you said, Tim, that you already told me you do an evaluation. How did you do? So you did definitely act with urgency. You shared some ways in which that played out for you. Is there any way that you wish you would have done it differently in the last year?
Oh, there's a lot of things I wish I'd done differently. Yeah. I think the interesting part is because we're part of a large organization, a very large parent company as well, we do get stymied in speed to be able to do certain things. And where I wish, at least for me personally, is I can get really frustrated really quickly that things aren't going either my way or the way I think our business should be going. And so I really get frustrated, and sometimes that comes out. And so there's a couple of occasions where I probably would like to go back and maybe change my response in some conversations with others that was probably taken out of context. And it wasn't because of someone else's, what would you say? It wasn't intentional. It was just the big organization can sometimes take time. It's hard for me to learn that.
So with that in mind, what's your 2026 word? Patience?
Yeah, it probably should be. No, I have to give you a story though before I get to my 26 word, because normally it's the week between Christmas and New Year that I reflect and I work through what my word's going to be, and it usually is at the very last minute. This word, my year for 26, I knew this word 2 months ago, and so let me explain it. Right. I grew up in a Catholic family. I went to a Catholic boarding school. I stepped away from my faith. My wife and my kids though have this amazing faith. And so I wouldn't say I'm jealous. I want to understand. And so over the course of the last 326 days or something, I'm doing Bible in a year. And so I have 35 days to go up to date. It's a podcast that I listen to every day. And I'm going this faith journey, and where it ends, I'm not really sure. But as I got to thinking about what does it mean? Why am I doing this? The word devotion came up. And so it was really easy for me to say that devotion is going to be my word, not from just a faith perspective, right? The definition of devotion is like love, loyalty, or enthusiasm for a purpose, an activity, or a cause. And so with all of the changes that have happened in personally, this journey that I'm on, devotion for my faith, what does that look like? Devotion to my wife and my family, how do I be better for them? And then from a business perspective, how do I have the right devotion to my job, my company, but most importantly, my team members? Mm. And so for me, what it means is, what does my journey look like in all of those areas, and how can I be better, in a simple word?
So that word came loud and clear to you this year, didn't it?
Yeah, it just like hit me like a brick.
And I think the charge that you put upon yourself, Tim, to really dig into the devotion as it applies to each of those areas of life, it is the same challenge that I know is on the mind of so many of our colleagues in the industry that we work in. The producers that I talk with, not always on the podcast. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it's the conversation that never makes it on air. It's that, I hate to use the word struggle, but a pull in so many different places to where you put your time, your energy, and most importantly, your focus. And that's kind of what you're saying too, right?
Absolutely, right. I think we're all on a journey, wherever we are within this journey. And what does that look like? I mean, we're only ever going to be here for 80 to 85 years, 90 years, or whatever the number is. And so within this journey of life, where do you focus? What is most important to us as a person or as a family man or a husband or a leader? And so how do you make sure that during that period of time, you're doing the right thing for the right people for the right reasons?
So you said a lot right there. And you've also talked about the different sectors in which you put that focus, the family life, the team. So what's your action plan? What does that look like for Tim going into 2026 so that you can truly put some intentionality on being devoted in those areas to which you want to place your priorities.
Yeah, I think if you break them up into the groups, right? So from a faith perspective, I don't know where the journey ends. I already have a plan for next year on the next 12 months. So there's another podcast series that lasts 12 months that I'm going to listen to continue to grow in that part of my life. And then from a family perspective, it is very intentionally to spend more time talking to my kids, listening to them, talking with my wife, going back to dating again, those kind of, right? And being back in touch with who I am and what I'm supposed to do as a husband and a father. And then from a job perspective, it's absolutely about engaging in the direction of us as a company, and back to all the other words, empowering and engaging and acting with urgency, again, getting the team to have that same focus. It's a true purpose for what we do. There's a reason we all get up to go to work every day, and I want every one of them to have that same intention that when they wake up, they truly know they're going to make a difference.
What's that purpose for you?
So I have a why that Simon Sinek, I had the option to be part of him. So my why is love my wife, empower my children, embolden my coworkers, right? For me, that was easy, but my purpose, right? We may not feed people, but our customers surely do. And so how do we make sure that our customers, be it a rancher, be it a dairy, be it a large feed yard, or anybody within that industry, how do we make sure that they have the right products, the right solutions, the right answers to do their job to the best of their ability? I think it's humbling to be able to be part of one of the most important industries in the nation that is feeding people.
And there's a lot of power in that purpose, isn't there?
There's a huge amount of power in that purpose. I'm one of the lucky ones, I think, Peggy, that I get to wake up each day knowing that I have the ability to have an action that does make a difference in the life of somebody that I may never meet.
That's a very big calling on your life.
It's a great calling for our team.
But it starts with you as a leader, right? Because if you believe that to be true for yourself, it permeates those that you touch. And when you talk about being intentional with that leadership, as you said, now it is going to a different level for you with having to be even more intentional about making those contacts and making those points of connection with the move. You mentioned too, Tim, there was a Bible podcast that you've been listening to for the last year, that you'll take the second step of that in the year ahead. And so would you mind sharing the name of that in case somebody else would like to go on their own journey?
Yeah, so the one that I'm doing now is called Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmidt out of Minnesota. He's a Catholic priest. For the first 200 and something days, you go through the Old Testament and understand. And now we're into the New Testament, which is really interesting. And so for me, it was just to understand the context of all the different chapters of that. Next year, I've already made the decision to do Catholicism in a year. And so it's understanding why the Catholic Church, what does that mean to me? Why do we do certain things during Mass, etc.? And so it's another 20 minutes a day for 365 days. And I actually now am at a point where I'm enjoying my solitude, where I get to sit, listen to it, drink my coffee, ride my bike, whatever it is I'm doing. And I do a lot of repeat. I have to go back and say, now, help me understand what that meant.
So how has it changed you? Do you think it's changed you in the last 10 months to have made this a habit?
I think I'm more intentional at trying to be a better person, right? I'm more intentional when I go to church now on listening, whereas historically I would have sat there. So I try to pay more attention to understand and to listen to what they're saying. And without a doubt, I think I'm a better person for my family. Now, I still have a long way to go, Peggy. There's a long way to go, and I'm not perfect. I'm far from it, but I'm on the journey.
So you talked about your family, Tim. How old are your kids?
I have a 26-year-old daughter who has a grandson who'll be here in 2 days, and I'm so excited. My son is 24 and my youngest is 20.
So speak to the other dads out there who have children in their 20s that are out of the house. And I'm sure there are others too that now have kids in different states. One of yours is in Wisconsin, right?
I have one in Wisconsin, one in Kansas, and one is here in South Dakota.
So you have kids in different places. They're in their 20s. They're starting their own lives and families in some cases. And you said before that part of your word devotion for 2026 is to intentionally connect with your kids. So what does that look like? How are you planning to bring that to life? Because there's others out there too that are in the same boat. I mean, well, and even me, right? We've got two kids in their 20s also. So
it's really easy to just think, oh, they're doing their own things. I don't want to be bothered by me. For me, anyway, it's having a conversation, FaceTime, just a phone call. How are you doing? Do you need anything? For me, that's what I'm doing, is just calling them up and talking to them and seeing how life is. And if they need guidance, be the guider. And if they don't, just be the person to listen. I think most kids, including myself when I was that age, we figured we had it all worked out. And so I don't want to be the person that's going to tell them what they should be going to do. I want them to learn, but I want to be there and available if they need something. And so without a doubt, it's intentionally going to visit them. It's intentionally taking my wife and getting in a car when we have the opportunity to take her and go see our family members.
So this is something that's really prioritizing.
I was very much focused on work. And don't get me wrong, we've been blessed because of it. But again, we're only on this earth for a short period of time. I want to be able to be the person that my kids would say, he was good to us.
Aw, I love that, Tim.
Maybe I'm a little late at trying to get it done, but I'm going to be very intentional at being better for them.
What I really appreciate what you shared here, because I think it hits a lot of other people that can relate to where you're at. And so I don't know if this resonates with you at all, but you talk about picking up the phone with your team and having those conversations. Now you talk about picking up the phone and having the same conversations with your kids. And I know for me personally, sometimes I do a better job of having the good conversations in the workday and not the best job with the ones that truly matter. So that's my admission there that it happens.
You're absolutely right, Peggy. I think it happens with all of us, right? Don't get me wrong. Work is important because it allows us to do certain things, but I think we lose focus on the really, really important things.
I give you a ton of credit, Tim, for being able to step back and to look at what are those areas of life that you want to be different in 2026. When I first started choosing a word myself, which has been, almost 10 years now, which is crazy. But I think what spoke to me about the whole concept was that it was less about what I could achieve and more about who I wanted to become and how I wanted to grow in a way that was different. And I think the goal part is probably the easy part. They're easy to set. I love going after things, right? But I also, probably a little bit like you, I like to move fast. And so sometimes the challenge is to slow down enough to say, okay, I know where I'm going. I know where I want to get, but who am I on my way there? And am I going to like the person I am when I get there?
That's pretty heavy. That's pretty good. Yeah. Well, what is your word for 25 that you're working through right now?
So my word for 2025 has been stewardship. I always feel like God just puts a word on my heart. And like you talked about how this year it came early. I always know about October-ish or so. There's always something that really hits me. And this past year has been the year of stewardship. And it was about, in the beginning, it was about, okay, let me take inventory of every area of life and really say, how am I stewarding these gifts that God's given me? And you always think about the fable of the three servants, and they're given the talents to bury, right? As the story goes in the Bible, it's like, okay, well, what did you do with yours? Did you bury it and leave it in the ground? Did you take it and did you multiply it? Did you do nothing, right? And so that's kind of how, at the beginning of the year, I'm like, let me look at every area of life and the gifts that I've just been so blessed with, a beautiful family, a great husband. What I've been able to do with Uplevel has been beyond my wildest dreams. And also, I work with a lot of youth. I coach kids in Dairy Quiz Bowl, and like that's this other whole passion that I put a lot of time and energy into, and to kind of just take inventory of all of these areas, health, right? That side, the spiritual side, all the things, and say, how am I doing with what I've been given? And that frame of mind it's forced some decisions to pull back in some places. To the same point, say, okay, what does my family need from me? What does my husband need from me? What is it that I can continue to still give to those that I serve? And when I say those that I serve, as I mentioned, it's the kids that I coach. I call it the whole dairy community because, this business that I'm in, it is a business of service. Like I am called to serve through this work. And so am I doing it? Am I showing up and doing it every day? Because there is no way that I'm doing this because of my own merits. It's because of the doors that God's opened. And I got to say, if he's put me here, it's to serve him and to serve him well. And if I'm not doing that, I need to take a good hard look at what I am doing. So stewardship has been a pretty forceful word on me for this year, but a good one. But I will say, I think I have my word for 2026 and I don't like it at all.
Well, I think some of them come up and there's a reason they're there, and they're not supposed to be easy in some cases, right?
Yeah, and I don't like this one. The word is prune. Not like the dried fruit, but prune, like what are you going to cut out? And I'm looking at my 2026 plans and hopes and dreams and everything else, and I'm like, I don't like this word.
I think you got to think about it though, Peggy, in terms of, it's one of those, do something every day that scares you a little bit. And maybe that's what you're supposed to do here is it scares you to cut some of it out and reprioritize what's important in life.
Why do you got to back it up? I was really hoping I could just pick a different one.
I love it. I think it's a great word. Everybody should prune stuff without a doubt.
So, you know what, though, I'll tell you this story because this is what I think about when I think about pruning and where it probably does make some sense. So my thing every summer is I get 3 of the biggest, most beautiful hanging baskets and I hang them up on my porch. And my mission for the summer is to keep these darn things alive. That means that I water them really well for the first 2 weeks and then I forget them for a week and whatever. But I love big, gigantic, jaw-dropping hanging baskets. That's my thing. And every summer, the same thing happens because I want them big and beautiful. I let them grow. And then usually about halfway through the summer, I look at them and I'm like, man, they're just looking like they're looking a little bit shaggy. And I'm always afraid to prune them because they aren't going to be as big. The same thing happens every year. I finally will get my little nippers out and I'll go and trim off the dead parts and the scaggly little pieces and all that. And for the first day, I'll step back and I'll be like, they don't look so beautiful. And then 2 days later, guess what happens?
Yeah. Boom. They're healthier and they're happier.
Gosh dang it. Got to stop this. Because I really was trying not to listen to this being the word, but you're just validating it.
I don't think you need me to validate it, Peggy. I think you've already done that.
I know, but I was really hoping something else. I would just know that something else was the right one. But now I think I'm pretty well stuck with it. So 2026 is the year of pruning. And thank you for the encouragement to stop looking for a better one. That sounds more fun.
I think the word is supposed to make you a better person. It's not always fun, but it will be fun, right? It's just challenging to start with. And I bet you're going to be the same way as your hanging plants. For the first couple of days, first couple of weeks, you're not going to be there. And then all of a sudden you're going to be, I'm healthier. I'm actually doing more because I'm doing the right things.
Yeah. So 2026, you are devoted and I'm pruning.
Sounds like we have a conversation to have at the end of the 26 to see how we did and to understand it. Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see it for you, Tim, how this all unfolds in the year ahead. And I really hope that our conversation today helps to plant the seed in someone else so that maybe they choose their own word, or should I rather say that a word comes to them, that God puts a word in their heart that truly guides them in their own growth, in their own path, in whatever direction that might be. And as we've talked about today, it's a life-changing experience. And to your point too, you've talked about the last few years and how your words, it's funny how they kind of build off of each other. And the experience has been the exact same way for me in 10 years time from where I started out choosing a word. And every year it just one built on top of the other. And I think that's the beauty of making that declaration. So I hope that this conversation is one that just plants that seed in someone else to just choose their word for the year, let that word come to them, and to not just let it sit in a notebook or in a place where it's going to be forgotten, but to put intentionality around it every day. And so do you put your word, do you do anything with it so you're reminded of it?
Well, I usually have it on a wall. I have it above my computer monitor in my office, so it'll sit up there. I absolutely verbalize it to my entire team, so everybody knows it, and so you can't hide from it from that point on. I think it's a little bit like goals. If you have a goal but you don't tell anybody, will you really accomplish it? And so once you verbalize it and people know about it, you have another level of accountability. So for me, anyway, I make sure people know about it, not because I want them to know, but because I want them to hold me accountable. You said, you wrote this down. How are you coming along?
And so that part, I'm sure, will come together very well for you as you communicate out, not just in our conversation that folks will hear on the podcast, but within your team as well. And those little reminders and questions to say, hey, how's that word going for you? And how's devotion come into life in 2026. And Tim, with that, so very grateful for the opportunity to catch back up with you and talk about something that is a much bigger concept than it's plays back into technology and the dairy industry, but truly this is the leadership, right? This is how we lead ourselves so that we can be better for those around us, and go back to the trickle effect of the team that you lead and the impact that has on feeding the world. And so any final words from you as we wrap up our conversation today?
No, thank you for the opportunity, right? I mean, you have an amazing audience. I think you have an incredible purpose on what you're doing and telling the story. I've listened to lots of your podcasts, and they all have something somebody can learn from. And so keep using this platform. I would, to your point, hopefully somebody else can have a word. If they want to know more about it, I'd tell them to go buy the John Gordon book, get on his website, subscribe to his Daily Positive, and it's just an uplifting component of, I wait for that email each day. And it's interesting how important some of them are, like just the little phrase and how timely they are sometimes. So I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for the opportunity for me to be on it. I'm humbled.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Tim. Well, I hope this conversation has left you inspired to choose your own word or phrase as you head into 2026. And I'd love to hear what's on your mind. So if you pick a word, shoot me an email to Peggy@upleveldairy.com. I'd love to know what's in store for you in 2026. And once again, happy Thanksgiving. And with sincere gratitude, I'm Peggy Coffey, and thank you for listening to the Uplevel Dairy Podcast.